work all week.
So when I arrived to UC Berkeley, I found the perfect outlet for my science geekiness. There was a class that I took called The Brain and Its Potentials, taught by Marion Diamond, and she had this hat box with her in front of the classroom. And very carefully, she pulled out a real human brain. I've never seen one before in my life. I mean, this is the structure that defines our personalities and allows us to go from laughing to crying in just 1 second. You know, that was the moment I realized that I wanted to be a neuroscientist. You know, I came from a very serious Japanese American family, and our family was serious about education. You know, we were very pleasant, very polite, but never overly affectionate. We were kind of like the Japanese American version of Downton Abbey. Like, "Mother, I need to tell you something." "What is it, my child?" "Mother, I love you." "That's quite all right, child." "I love you too." But without the accents, or the servants, or the I love yous. But, you know, that was us. Kido airaku ga nai. It's a Japanese saying which translates, "We do not show emotions like anger, sadness, and even love." In Japanese culture, our verbal expressions of love are seen as unnatural, even within a familial setting, limiting our ability to communicate vulnerability. However, Forbes magazine on March 8, 2018 illuminates the notion that exhibiting vulnerability has both a physiological and psychological power to it. Your actions may not always speak for itself, but author Wendy Suzuki argues that vulnerability through spoken word is not a sign of weakness. It is natural, no matter the language. Saying I Love You by Wendy Suzuki. Now, during this time in college, I was like, you know, I don't need you, Mom and Dad. I can do everything on my own. So I only called once every 3 months. I was busy. I was busy learning how to be a neuroscientist. There's a lot to learn. And one form that I just became fascinated with was memory. I wanted to understand the neural code underlying memory function. And I became an expert in long-term memory. But eventually, I got a phone call from my mother. She told me that my father was just not feeling well. And not only that, when he was driving around, he couldn't quite remember how to get to the 7-Eleven where he had been buying his morning coffee for like the last 30 years. Well, he couldn't remember. And that was scary. So the first thing that I did is I called my colleague and I found him the best neurologist that I could find. But during all this process, I couldn't help but feel guilty. I mean, I'm an expert at long-term memory and, well, I can't fix my father's memory problem. You know, my brother and I always knew that our parents loved us. It's like how you know your parents are angry with you without them actually saying it. They're like this close to just disowning you. That. But with love. You know, like how my dad almost froze off his fingers to help me build my snowman. Or how he taught me his favorite songs so we could sing on the rides home together. You know, my father didn't know how to say I love you with his words, but he knew how to show it with his actions. And well he was to lose that. And that's when I realized that, we had never said it before, which is very, very awkward. I'm an adult. Why do I have to ask my parents' permission to say, I love you? To which they're probably going to say, oh, thanks. But I knew that the only way to know what they would say is to ask them. So I gathered up my courage on Sunday night, and my mantra was, just keep it light. Hi, Mom. Yeah, here's my week. How's your week? I have a favor to ask. Yeah, so, we never say the words, I love you. What do you think of the idea of, starting to say that when we talk to each other? What do you think? And she paused. Or not, it's totally fine, it's okay. But then I heard her say that I think that's a great idea, and I was like, thank God. But it's one thing to agree to say I love you, and it's another whole thing to actually say I love you. And so, we were kind of just circling around each other, not really sure what to do. But, it's my responsibility. I'm the one with the idea. And so I grabbed the bull by the horns, and I was like, okay, like, get ready. I love you. And she was like, I love you too. And we were both like, oh my God, that's so hard. But we made it through. And so, because that went so successful, I wasn't worried about my dad at all. I asked him, he said yes, we did our awkward I love yous, and the phone call was over. But I have to admit, after I got off that call, I broke down in tears. It was so emotional to have actually said that, to know that I had changed the culture of my family that night. So the following week, you'll be happy to hear that my I love yous with my mom got ever so much less awkward. So we're doing really well, making progress. But I was talking to my dad, and I realized that he might not remember that we had made this promise the previous week. And so I was ready to remind him. But you know what? He said I love you first. And he says I love you first every single week after that. And you have to remember that my dad can't quite remember if I'm visiting for Thanksgiving or Christmas. But somehow he was able to make this memory work. And guess what? I know why, because I'm a neuroscientist. I know that emotional resonance is helpful for memories. And so the beautiful emotion of his daughter wanting to say I love you, it beat dementia and allowed him to form a new memory.